Anyway, good afternoon, everyone.
Good afternoon.
Welcome to the Design Sustainable Agricultural Projects breakout session. For me, it's great to be here in Seoul this week to connect with old friends and new friends, and as well to provide you with an opportunity to learn how to design a sustainable agricultural project from three experts who I will introduce shortly. So first, let me provide you with our agenda for this afternoon. I will start with the introductions of the panelists and myself. Then the three panelists will discuss their individual projects, and we will follow this with a quick discussion on some of the best practices and ways to change to achieve and sustain good results, even better, great results. And last, we'll end up with a question and answer period for you. So our goal is to try and give you at least 25 minutes for questions by the time we finish. So let me introduce the panelists to you, starting from my immediate left. The first is Xime. He is the head of his own law firm since 1985 and specializes in land, civil, and commercial law. Xime became a Rotarian in 1990 and is a member of the Rotary Club of Ramat Hasharon in District 2490. He is very active in this club and district, having served in many roles, including club president twice, and is now in his third year as a District Rotary Foundation coordinator. He is also a multiple Paul Harris Fellow, benefactor in Bequest Society, and a major donor. Next to Xime is Gabriel Chaparra. He is the founder and managing director of Mantis Africa Limited, a business consulting and seminar business since June of 2003 in Harare, Zimbabwe. On the Rotary side, he is very active and is the immediate past president of the Rotary Club of Massa in District 9210. Our last panelist is Manuel Nieto. He is a chemical engineer and since 1980, the founder and managing director of an industrial material supply business. His company, Química Comercial, has a production division with 2 factories and a supply division. Manuel joined Rotary in 1993 as a charter member of the Rotary Club Quito Sur in District 4400 and has served as president of 2003-04. In 2007, he joined the Rotary Club of Quito, the oldest club in Ecuador, that was established in 1927 and has served as president there as well. Manuel has served in many roles within District 4400, but his passion for projects led him to organize the first Rotary Ecuador Project Fair in 2004. Since then, he has organized 10 of the 11 fairs held to date, fostering humanitarian projects for the poor people of his country to the order of US $4 million. This Rotary year, Manuel is the district governor for 4400 and has achieved the presidential citation, an award that's been only achieved by 22 districts of our 535 around the world. I think that award is deserving of applause, don't you?
Yeah.
Manuel is also a multiple Paul Harris Fellow, a member of the Paul Harris Society, and a major donor. And last but not least, my name is Jim Ludden. On the Rotary side, I'm a past president of the Rotary Club of Toronto Sunrise in District 7070, after joining Rotary in 2005 as a founding member of the Rotary Club of Lima Sunrise in District 4450. I am a past chair and president of the Rotarian Action Group for Microfinance and Community Development, and now sit as a past chair of the advisory board of the Rotarian Action Group for Community Development, Microfinance and Community Development. I am also a district governor-elect for 7070, and this afternoon, your moderator for this session. So this afternoon, we've got 3 great examples of agricultural projects to demonstrate. The first will be Xime speaking about agriculture and irrigation in Kenya, followed by Gabriel on commercial cassava in Sierra Leone, and last Manuel telling about 3 wonderful projects that he's involved with in Ecuador. So, Xime, it's all yours.
Thank you, Jim. Good afternoon. The TIPA project. TIPA in Hebrew is a drop of water. Israel had its independence 68 years ago, when the land was either desert in the south or swamps in the north. It's a very small country, and it takes about 6 hours from the southern part to the northern part, and 1.5 hours from east to west, so it's very small. And most of the country was kind of a desert, with high temperature and low in water and rainfall. Israelis needed to survive in the desert, and in order to make desert bloom and thrive, they developed unique irrigation techniques and kind of unique desert farming and growing of vegetables and fruits. There are two major Israeli organizations that have decided to use the knowledge and help others. The Brit Olam, International Volunteering and Development Organization, promotes values of social responsibility and volunteerism. Brit Olam, their mission was to achieve its mission. They integrate Israeli Jewish from Israel and Jewish from all around the world as volunteers to cultivate sustainable development programs for the benefit of disadvantaged population, and carries out relief operations in response to natural and man-made disasters. The other organization is the Arava Institute. The Center for Sustainable Agriculture is a vital player in the field of desert agriculture and sustainable agriculture all around the world. They deal mainly with new applications in botanical medicine, renewable energy, and sustainable agriculture, with a drop-by-drop irrigation system which was developed by an Israeli Agriculture Institute. One of the projects was to implement an agriculture development project in Kenya, in Turkana region, which is at the northern part of Kenya, to contribute towards food security and the generation of income for the local population. This is a joint program of the Arava Center for Sustainable Development, the missionary community of St. Paul the Apostle, Brit Olam organization, and the local semi-nomadic of North Turkana. Our RI past director, Gidi Piper, a member of my club in Ramat HaSharon, was the director of Zone 28 Africa, and he made connections of Routery Israel with those organizations and the co-partners Mutaiga Rotary Club, and a global grant was born. African agriculture is mostly a rain-fed system, producing stable crops during a short period of the year. Low soil fertility, combined with frequent droughts, results in a very low yield. Revenues from rainfall staples are low. The result is poverty and food insecurity. The locals used to work with hand irrigation and watering cans. This was most popular technology. It's a very intensive labor and hard for the woman that can carry only and water only 20 square meters plots for the whole day, doing nothing else. Surface irrigation is limited to fine texture soils and flat surfaces. It results in water waste and soil compaction. It's also a labor-intensive work, which has a very low results. Our humanitarian project was to help local population by introducing them to irrigation techniques and farming in order to grow simple and traditional vegetables, and then to teach them these techniques in order that they will teach the others to do the same. The project was to give each family 50 square meters of land, install artificial water reservoirs, install drop-by-drop irrigation system from these artificial water reservoirs to fertilize and pesticize the land, and then sow and plant seeds of traditional vegetables in order to grow their own crops. The system is based on low-pressure drip irrigation, a mix of vegetables and tree crops, and management package that leads optimization of the products system. It was only natural that Israeli Rotarians had the enthusiasm to be part of the project in Turkana. Rotary, with our project in Turkana, gave the local population the opportunity to survive and thrive by giving them the tools to produce their own production. Thank you very much. I'd like to now invite Gabriel.
Thank you, Chaim. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Let me start by asking you to raise your hand if you are from Africa. Okay. Also raise your hand if you've ever done anything to do with farming. Oh, that's a good number. Now, let me take you through our project, which is looking at commercializing cassava production in Sierra Leone. As you can see from the slides here, the project involves about 2,200 people in about 9 villages. And the key issue here is commercialization and reduction of poverty. In most African countries, you know that there's poverty. And this project looks at moving people from subsistence farming, which is poverty-stricken, to a point where they join the middle class on a permanent basis. When you look at the numbers here, you have 2,200 adults, 2,200 people, 1,000 of which are adults. Another half is obviously young adults. And the split between gender is 50-50 between men and women. So in a way, it cuts across all genders and cuts across all ages. Why? Because poverty, by its nature, does not discriminate based on gender or age. So in a way, this project makes sure that in terms of addressing community needs, it touches on almost everyone. And to make sure this was done properly, there was a research that was done by the Sierra Leonean Agricultural Research Institute, and it made sure that the projects addressed specific community needs. This is one thing you need to look at when you are doing a project in any community, whether it's agricultural or otherwise. And to move from subsistence to becoming a commercial project takes a lot of planning. And based on this project here, we got to a point where $221,420 was required for this project to start. And from that project, the initial acreage that was involved in was about 50 acres. And then when you look at the figures, by the way, I'm an accountant, so I'm quite comfortable with figures. When you look at figures, in any given year, the target profit is $100,000. That's at project level. And at family level, we're looking at each person making as much as $20 to $30 a day. This is in a community where the average income on a daily basis is about $5. So as you can see, from $5 per day, per person, to about 20 to 30, that's in any economy, particularly in Africa, is a big jump. Because in my country, Zimbabwe, the poverty dictum line is about $540. So if somebody earns about $30 a month, it means, sorry, per day, it means per month, it's about $780. And I can tell you, most African families can live for $780. And then added to that, there's the element of value addition, which is very key. Because I'm sure most of us remember that in Africa, we sell raw produce. But this project made sure that apart from harvesting the raw cassava in its sugar form, it's peeled, it's pounded, and it's value added into cassava flour, which is then sold. From an acreage of 250 acres here, you get about 1,000 metric tons. And when you look at the figures involved, in the end, there is a permanent movement from subsistence farming to becoming middle-class members. Therein lies the issue about reducing our poverty. We all know that there is widespread poverty in Africa, and this project specifically addresses that. Now, apart from making sure that people are fed and they've got some cash in their pocket, and to make sure that the project is sustainable, there is training, which is done at individual level, at group level, and at village level. Make sure that by the time we are done with the project, the handover, one, is phased, and secondly, it allows the project members or the beneficiaries to carry on without much need to go back to the original implementers. And that, to me, tells us that when you then look at this point about each person being able to hire at $10 per hour, in other words, hiring the equipment, we're teaching our people to move away from being given fish to being the ones who do the fishing. Because if you give me fish, you have to give it to me every day. But if you teach me how to fish, like you see in this project here, it means when you're gone, I can do my own fishing, whether I'm catching one fish a ton or 20 pounds, depending on my needs. And linked to that is also the issue of computer training. With any project, you need record keeping. And obviously, computers make it easier to keep records. And linked to the issue of record keeping is the element of tracking your project from the time you plan to start on the project, implementation, and monitoring and evaluation when you come to an end. Which means that when you then teach the project members or beneficiaries on how to do record keeping and to do it in a way that is allows records to be kept for a long time. It also enables them to learn how to keep records at individual levels. So, when you summarize this project, it has an element for the focus area, economic and military development. It also touches on health because there was an element of doing up some clinics, and it also has an element of bringing books to schools, which also touches on basic education literacy. Which means, when doing projects, you need to also remember that the focus areas have to be borne in mind, and it doesn't have to be one focus area. In that short presentation, I hope I've shared a few things about how best to do a project, particularly in Africa. Thank you very much. And now, leaving the capable hands of the RI citation-winning DG Manuel. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I didn't know that this award was important, but I really appreciate Gabriel's words. Okay, I'm trying to transmit to you the best practices that in District 4400 we have found regarding agricultural projects. I will do this by highlighting in red the key elements that constitute this best practice. We'll be reviewing very quickly 3 projects. One of them is on education. The other one is a new business. The first one is a new business, the second is education. And the third one is an improvement of crop raising. And one important thing to keep in mind with these projects is that we are talking about beneficiaries that are poor people, uneducated people. So these projects are rather simple, but for these people, they are very important and somewhat complicated. And we have to keep this in mind to understand very well what we are talking about. Well, the first project is the provision of a laboratory to produce trichoderma microorganisms to be inoculated in organic materials to produce organic fertilizers. On the first picture, you will see how the trichoderma looks. And they are directed towards producing organic products for exports like coffee. This project takes advantage of the microorganism diversity that Ecuador has. Through this microorganism technology, we can custom design these microorganisms for each crop, each type of soil, or each type of climate. Technically, the fertilizers break the carbon chains, but they do disinfect the soil, and very important, they regenerate nutrients in the soil damaged by the use of chemicals. On this project, this is really the heart of the project. One, we are going to provide the laboratory, but that will not work if we do not give the necessary training to the community. So there are two types of training involved here. One is the technical training on the use of trichoderm for production. And second, perhaps most important, is a business management training. We have to train these people to handle a business of their own. The global grant is for 53,000 people, and this benefits 80 families, around 400 people. In red, you will see what I was saying of the elements that you need for a successful project. Training, and of course, you will need funds, economical funds, to carry on the project. The second project is a demonstrative training farm, also for poor people. In this project, what we pretend is to train the community in agroecological production, soil conservation and restoration, water management, and harvesting. This is a demonstrative training farm. It consists basically of an educational program. It will focus areas like marketing, like nutrition, and so on. The benefited people are 80 families, and the project cost is about $63,000. And the third project is very simple, but it's very helpful to these people. And it's the installation of micro-tunnel greenhouse structures. This of course has a technical component regarding the structures, the greenhouse structures. And these structures protect crops in the wet season from water damage, in the dry season from strong sunlight, and during the day and in the night from frost damage. It also protects crops from winds and excess luminosity. In Ecuador, we are on the equator, in the middle of the world, so our sun rays are perpendicular, and in the highlands, we have about 3,000 meters altitude there, so the sun rays are very clean. So we do have a problem of excess luminosity. The results of the project have been extraordinary, up to the point that several neighboring villages replicated the use of these greenhouses. With the project, we had 50 families benefited, and the cost of the project was only $18,000. Again, these projects look very simple, but they are very important and complicated to uneducated people to poor people. And that's what we are trying to do with these projects. Thank you very much.
So, thank you, Manuel. I think what I'd like to do next is say, you just heard some great examples by 3 experts, and I think they all deserve a big round of applause. But before we get into the Q&A question and answer period, I think it would be good to learn some best practices from the examples you just heard. These will include ways to change, to achieve and sustain good results, and some good lessons learned. So maybe let's start with Manuel, since he just finished, to see what he learned about tell us a little bit more about the Ecuador project. Any best practices, Manuel, you want to share with the audience?
Yes. Well, from the projects you saw, there are many important key elements that form a successful agricultural project or any type of project. You do need a community need. Otherwise, you will not have a successful project. The community has to have a need. Second, of course, we need some technological knowledge. I particularly, I am a chemical engineer. I'm not an agricultural expert, but we have other people in our clubs that know the agriculture side technically, so we form teams with them and they design products or projects. A very important is the educational part, the training part we have to give to these communities. For example, in the laboratory, in the trichoderma laboratory, we will do nothing if we don't train the people. If we do not educate the people both technically and how to run economically a business. And that's really, as I was saying, the heart of the project. Another area, very important, is of course to have unique economical resources to carry on these projects. But perhaps, I think this is the best practice we can do as Rotarians, is apply the Rotarian philosophy. The Rotarian philosophy says that we should do service projects in an atmosphere, a Rotarian atmosphere of friendship and fellowship, and use our knowledge, our professions, our formation, our education to form these projects and bring service to the needed people. Thank you.
Thank you, Manuel. Okay, next we're going to turn to Gabriel. Gabriel, anything you might want to add about possible changes to achieve great results?
Yes, in my experience as a consultant and also as a Rotarian, I've noticed that most people are reluctant to keep records. You know, with RRI, when you get money from the foundation or from any other partner, whether it's local or international, they want to see figures. They want to see reports. And which reports tell the story of what's happening on the ground. So what I've learned from this project in Sierra Leone is that you need to keep records on the word go. And as money is being spent, because every time money is spent, people want to know where the money is gone. So records need to be kept. And better still, in your clubs, you can then look for Rotarians who are linked to business, or linked to finance or accounting, to make sure that the reporting is adequate. And then in terms of empowerment, you remember from the project, it was looking at adults, whether male or female, and the youth. That also allows the project to carry on for a long time. And in any case, with any project, whether it's a business project or even Rotary, if you want to empower a nation, who do you empower? It's the women. So if you then combine the women and the youngsters, it means that in the long term, that project has a long life. And then lastly, when you look at then agriculture specifically, there's three key things that we need to look at. Number one, yield. You heard when I was talking about 1,000 metric tons from 250 acres of cassava. That's a lot of produce. But linked to that, directly linked to that, is making sure that there's demand and their market. Because when there's no demand and no markets, you will not be talking about making $100,000 per annum. And then lastly, which is linked to record keeping and profitability, is the issue of costs. If you're not careful in terms of record keeping, which means you may end up undercosting or overcosting, you will not know how much money you've made. And when you don't know how much money you've made, chances are your project will not succeed in the long term. Thank you.
Thank you, Gabriel. And finally, Perhaps there's something else you might want to share on lessons learned. For example, maybe you can tell us about some of the benefits of your TIPA project.
Well, the benefits actually is water saving. The drop-by-drop irrigation system and Israeli innovation waters the seeds slowly but efficiently, bring out a better quality of products and yield, labor saving, a high yield of improved quality vegetables and fruits, the ability to produce crops all around the year, making skilled farmers, operational simplicity, and high yield and products quality. The project actually was planned for 3 phases for 3 years to cultivate 180 families in order them to teach the others. We have finished phase 1 and now we have seen in the pictures that they are growing vegetables. Now we are on phase 2, which they are growing now watermelons and corn, and next year we'll start the phase 3. We can conclude that we can change desert to a better and flourishing place. Thank you.
Okay, now it's your turn. So we do have a microphone in the middle here. What I'd like you to do, if you're coming up to pose a question, please state your name and the name of your club and what panelist you're directing the question to. Or if it's a general question, we'll see who wants to go first. Go ahead.
Yeah, my name is Chris Troy. I'm with the Glenville Rotary Club in New York. I had a question about the drip agriculture. When you go to work the field to plow it or mechanically weed it or whatever, what do you do about the drip agricultural plumbing that you've got in the field?
Sorry, what do you what?
In the case of drip agriculture, from the pictures, it looked like you had some kind of plumbing running down the length of the field to supply water to the beds. That's right? Yes.
What they're doing is now instead of sending the women to bring water with cans and watering the surface, they are doing an artificial reservoirs and with pipes, drop by drop irrigation system, so the seed gets drops of water and not just putting water on it.
No, I understand that part. It makes the application of water more efficient. The bed, you deliver water directly to the bed. But when you want to plow the field, when you want to turn the field over or weed it or whatever, those pipes would seem...
No, you just collect them after you finish the season, and then you put them back.
Oh,
it's removable, no problem.
All right. Thank you.
The pipes are very small and not heavy. You just collect them and put them back.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks. Before we ask the next question, as well, if you do have a question, instead of waiting until the other question's been answered, please come and stand behind the microphone and then we can keep it moving. Thank you. Okay, next question.
My name is Sam from Nigeria, District 9110. I'm particularly interested in the agricultural program of cassava. And I believe that in producing cassava, you have a lot of byproducts that come from it. Was this put into consideration in the design of the program? That's number one. Number two is how much are the villagers involved themselves in this program? Because we're talking of investment. And if you are investing on behalf of people and they're not involved, then you might find that within 2 or 3 years, it will just fizzle out. How much are they involved apart from the grants they get? Thank you.
Gabriel, I think that's yours.
Thank you for the Rotary. The first issue to do with byproducts. In this presentation, it was shortened, but yes, it was looked at because the byproducts have a value, and that value can be used to augment the financial resources. So yes, it was looked at. That just didn't go into the detail as to what the byproducts were. We're just looking at the main area. So, but the point is taken that yes, byproducts have to be taken into account. And then secondly, when you look at the villages who were involved and how they were involved, If you remember, we talked about 2,200 people that were involved in the project, covering 9 villages. And at an individual level, we were saying, instead of just having the money in one pot for the cooperative, let each individual household who may want to do their own cultivation come and hire the tractors for $10 an hour, so that at least they can earn money at family level. And over and above that, there was training for each individual, which training they will use, one, for the big project, and secondly, at their own family level when they're doing their own note keeping. But obviously, beyond this, if you train one person who's in one village, chances are they're also going to share the information they've learned to whoever they live with, who may or may not have been involved directly in the project. I hope that addresses your question. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Kadri, Russian Club of Nairobi East, Kenya, and actually I have many questions because I'm very passionate about projects. That's why I just realized. So one to Chaim. From the pictures it was visible that you use fresh water for the drip irrigation. Is it possible to use recycled water? Because we've got projects at several rural schools in Kenya, and these are in very dry areas where what we're doing for them is we're doing rainwater harvesting. And so at the schools the children would use some water to wash their hands. Is it possible to use soapy water to feed into the pipes? So that's the first question. And second question is to Manuel. The various chemical processes that you described to increase fertility in the ground with the various biological interventions, are those only specific to the soils in Ecuador, or can they be applicable also in other soils? Because as Chaim already earlier mentioned, in Kenya very often the problem is the low fertility in the soil. And so if there are ways to increase that without necessarily putting in chemicals, that would be of great interest. Thank you. And I have many more. We'll see how the Q&A goes, and if there's time for more, we'll bring you back.
Well, Kadri, of course you can use these waters, but I think that right now it's too early in this stage, because these wastewaters need to be treated first, and this is another global grant project in the future to make the machinery to do so in that area. It's not yet, can't do it now.
Can I add something to that? One aspect important to that is if we don't have a real and a good treatment system, and you have the water coming from the sewer using for the vegetable, you may have other issue to resolve.
No, hand washing. I'm only talking about water used for washing hands, not sewer water.
Still, you need to treat them before you use it for the plants.
So it's better to be careful, especially in that region where we are talking about is very, very dry, and using a larger machinery can be a problem because you use those equipment, you need to find somebody to fix them. So that's another layer problem or issue that we have to layer the problem we have already.
I can tell you that in Israel they do, because we have enough machinery and the ability to do so. So part of it, and even I can say most of the growing are using these waters, but it's still early into Ghana.
I think there was a part 2 of that question.
Well, okay, trichoderms is a big family of microorganisms. It's a big, big family. And the difference are very small between one and the other, and can be very small from one microorganism to the other. However, the best, the most recommended way to use these microorganisms is so that you can custom make them for a particular soil, for a particular crop, for a particular climate. You can do that. You can do that. And if, of course, if you are able to do that in let's say in Ecuador, of course you can replicate the project, making some adjustments in any other part of the world.
Okay, next.
My name is Rachel. I'm from Rotary Club of Highlands in Harare, Zimbabwe. I have a passion for these projects and microfinance, especially for women and youngsters. I understand, Rotarian girls, you mentioned teaching somebody to fish and not giving them fish. I agree with you. My question is, to what extent, as Rotarians, do we teach somebody to fish? I'm talking here about sustainability of projects. And in this context, I'm thinking of mentorship. To what extent do we mentor in our projects to ensure sustainability?
Thank you, Rachel. I take your point that you need to teach in a manner that allows somebody to self-sustain. Haim, was it Haim or Manuel, who talked about demonstrative farming training, where you actually show somebody how to use the plow, you show them how to plant, you show them how to weed. That's on the farming side. But having said that, if the farming side, which is practical, is not tallied with knowing how to manage your finances, I know you're talking about microfinance. If you're not taught how to manage finances, no matter how good your agronomy practices are, if you mismanage the money, the costing side of it, and you undersell, you don't do your research and market demand, you won't succeed, because sooner or later, there won't be enough money to do the next crop. So the training should cover both sides. The practical side, number one, which means the technical side of what's supposed to be done, and secondly, the resources that are required for the practical side to be self-sustaining and over long term.
Yeah, agreed.
May I add, please, all the TIPA project in Turkana is the answer for your question, because we have gave 50 square meters plots for 180 families. It's not the result. The point is that they will learn how to do the work and teach the others, in order that instead of 50 square meters, they will have 5,000 square meters in the future.
I agree with you. In this instance, I'm talking of how long we're going to do our mentorship. From what you're saying,
as long as it needed.
Yes.
okay. From what you are saying, you're leaving it to the groups to teach each other. But as Rotary, how long after we finish a project should we carry on mentoring?
Yes, definitely. That's why this project in Turkana is 3 phases, 3 years in a row. We begin with 50 square meters just for simple vegetables, and now after they learned and they did it, we went to the second phase, and now they are growing watermelons and corns, and after they learn to do it and finish it, we go to the third phase.
I think Manuel wanted to make a comment on that as well.
Yes, I wanted to comment. I have seen this, I also was looking at these projects, and they're wonderful projects. It's very important what we have seen regarding giving the communities a production, a business, so that they can work, the community can work. They can create jobs with that, they can earn some money, and they can improve their level of life through this type of projects. So we are, with this type of projects, creating business, instead of just giving a particular, let's say, a water plant or whatever. Through creating this business, we are doing what you're saying. We are teaching how to fish instead of giving them the fish.
Gabriel, go ahead.
Thanks, Jim. Just to add on, if you recall, in Zim we had the 3H grant, where the humanity, health, and hunger. Remember, there was the training of trainers who are community members, number one. Number two, there's also the formation of Rotary Community Corps to make sure that when we pull back as Rotarians, the community is empowered enough for them to carry on at their own pace without us being involved in the long term. So doing train the trainers and RCCs is also an answer to that.
Very good. Okay, our next question.
My name is Dale Knight. I'm with the Rotary Club of Rohnert Park, Patati, California, USA. I'm going to take us back to something a little more basic that's important to those of us who are international partners and working in Ecuador. One of the projects is one my club is sponsoring. We work in Africa. And the question is, how do you find these particular villages which are somewhat remote? And the second part then is, how do you deal with the fear or resistance from subsistence farmers who, this is a big risk to change how they're doing things because this is how they eat every day, to get them to try something new. So start with Manuel, please.
Well, yes, what you're saying is true, particularly on the second question. The way the communities work, they have been doing all their life the same thing, generation after generation. So it is very hard to make these changes. But you have to make a good, let's call it a good selling job. You have to show the people what you are proposing, the new technology works better than the one they were using. For example, in this on the project of microorganisms to produce organic fertilizers, the usual way is to get some organic material, plow it in, and leave it there for, I don't know, 4 to 6 months, and then you have the organic fertilizer. Through this technology of inoculating a microorganism, you can do that in 45 days. And second, you can do that in the farm. You do not have to take all the fertilizer from the producing plant to the farm. You can do it. You can do that on site. So that advantages you have to show, and you have to convince the farmers of these new technologies. But it is hard. I agree. It is very hard. And in order to find the communities, which was your first question, well, you have to be in contact with them, and it's also very hard as Rotarians to make projects for them, because you do need a responsible community. You need a community that has leaders, that is organized, that you know they're not going to let you down, and it's kind of hard. But you can find, with a little work, you can find those communities, yes.
Gabriel, did you want to?
Yes, please. On the issue of how you find these villages, talk to me.
I know villages in Uganda. People, how do they know?
No, let me respond directly.
Yeah.
Rotary is in 225 countries and geographical areas. A village in Africa is most probably known to an African Rotarian. So instead of maybe a Rotary club in the States, in the US, waiting for a club in Zimbabwe to get in touch, you can actually go on my Rotary and say, hey, let's do something in Zim. Let me speak to Gabriel. Can you look for this particular village? So, okay, anyone who needs this particular project, then the homework is on me. And the 4-way test will force me to make sure that I give you, as Dale, the kind of community that you want to work with. So, if you're a networked enough Rotarian and you use my Rotary, you can find any Rotarian anywhere in the world. That's number one. Number two.
But Dale will go to Africa after Ecuador.
My recommendation to the international partners is you go visit.
In fact, when you come to Zimbabwe to visit the Victoria Falls, nothing stops you from saying, hey, anywhere you travel to, ask, is there a club here? If there is one, then you start doing your homework. And then Africans in the diaspora, by the way, I'm sure in your state, you've come across a lot of Africans. And most of these rural-based projects are taking place in Africa for obvious reasons. And then linking that to the issue of changing the way they have lived before the project, two issues. What's in it for them? If you can address that question, you're done. And then linked to that is the issue of show me, don't tell me. I can come and tell you any story I want to tell you, but I gotta show you how to do it. And most importantly, how you do it is linked to a better life in the future. So it's incumbent upon us as Rotarians to make sure that before we approach any community, first of all, we don't try and show them that, hey, we're better than you. No. We just show them that, hey, we're here to help you live better lives. Thank you.
Thank you.
Do you want to add anything to that?
Well, in our project in Ethiopia, Kenya, we approach the missionary community of St. Paul the Apostle, who are being there already 12 years and in contact with the locals. So we have the continuity and the ties to get it together.
Excellent. Okay, next question.
All right, I'm Ruud Janknecht, coming from Curacao, which is one of the Caribbean islands in front of Venezuela. Originally from the Netherlands, but I lived there for 20 years now. Agriculture was very poor, and I started this project about 8 years ago, where we bought very cheap second-hand greenhouses from the Netherlands, because the Western farmers used huge greenhouses, and they wanted to get rid of the smaller ones, which we needed because the smaller ones are easier to handle. So this project is so successful that we are now delivering 3 or 4 vegetables to the local market, which we don't have to import from either Colombia or Venezuela, etc. So, but my questions are those two. One is we need the discipline of the people to learn them, to come back the next day, because they earned some money today, but they have to come back. And the learning of the machinery is no problem. We can handle that. But my second question is more important, and that is theft. We have a huge problem with theft. The thieves come with poison for the dogs, weapons, etc. So the local people don't dare to go in there in the night. Do you have a solution for the theft problem?
The police is the solution for thieves. However, in Turkana we don't have this problem. The only problem we have in Turkana is the wildlife.
Does anybody else have a possible answer?
Bring bigger dogs.
To be honest, Jim, I didn't quite understand your key question.
You didn't understand?
Your key question.
The key question is, how do we prevent theft in the greenhouses? Because that's a huge problem.
Involve the thieves in the project. Involve the thieves in the project. Those are thieves.
I think I agree with that, because if the community is well involved, they will let you know what's going on. Have a discussion without calling names, without calling teams. Have people sit down and ask and tell them, how can we prevent them? Those are, issues. Like somebody stealing from the farm, how can we resolve that issue? Is that a solution? How do they resolve themselves this type of situation? They should help you and find some solution. I'm sure they will tell you who are those who are
Okay, back. And actually, it's in connection with what Dale said, because there's every often there's a disconnect between the international clubs and the host club, and so very often, because being in Kenya, I'm always the host club. And very often we find that the international club is trying to get information, trying to get things together without actually consulting the local club. And so I think this is one of the very key things in successful grants is that the international club possibly maybe have an idea of what area of focus they would like a project in, and then seek a local club with whom they can develop the project together. Because in my experience, it comes out as a more successful project because very often, if the international club already has done about a year's worth of work, and they've gone out of their way to find information, some of it may be accurate, some of it may be not, and then by the time they talk to the local club, they have made up their mind, they're not even ready to hear the local club's suggestions because everything is already written down, everything is finished, we just need you to sign on the dotted line quickly so that we submit as fast as possible. And so in my experience, this is one of the pitfalls in a global grant, and so please consult us as local clubs and let's work on it together, because really finding the villages is never a problem. Like in our case, we've got other grants going on, we've got many villages in which we've got contacts, and you know, it's us local clubs, it's our role, it's our duty, allow us to do it.
I think that's a great point. We have a problem to form a club in Turkana, which is middle of a desert in nowhere. That's why we approached the Router Club in Kenya.
Well, what you're really talking about is what you're really talking about is that we first have to identify a need. If the international club is proposing a project, you are not doing that. You have to go through it first with the local club and see what they need and see what they propose. They have a need, and that's the way to go. You cannot do it the way around because you will have problems if you do not do that.
Often it goes the other way around.
Okay,
just to add, Router clubs, host Router clubs that she is mentioning. Imagine this: we are at a convention here. Please raise your hand if you are from Africa and you brought a list of projects that you would want funded. All of a sudden, the numbers are not as many as when I said if you're from Africa. The point I'm making here is, we as the host clubs need to go into the habit of coming up with projects that are based on what we've already seen in the communities that we live in, that we travel in, that we associate with, before we even come here. So at least there's a matching of an identified and confirmed need and an international partner. Not waiting, yes, there's money in the US, there's money in Canada, in Europe, in South America. But that money will be better used if clubs in the needy countries also take it upon themselves to come up with projects, even if at the time of coming up with the project, the money is not yet identified.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yes.
Which means we'll have a checklist of projects that are waiting for funding in case you come across a funder.
excellent. Okay, time is getting close to ending, so we have two more questions, but I know the panelists will be here after if you have other questions, so we'll take the first and last two. Go ahead.
Congratulations to the panelists and gentlemen for your projects. My name is Javier Sanchez from District 4400. My question is about timing. In your opinion, gentlemen, for how long in terms of years is convenient to monitor and evaluate these kind of agricultural projects in order to reach their goals?
I would say that you have to monitor all the time. You have to all the time control the project. Otherwise, if you do it in not the timely manner, you can lose control of the project. You have to do it very, 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 very regularly.
Well, it differs from a project to a project because once they have the skills, that's the end. They can do it by themselves. You don't have to monitor it anymore. Our goal was to teach them. And now if they're growing it by themselves, we did it.
And just linked to that, when you start a project, you do a community need assessment. And in that assessment, you need to come up with areas where they know nothing, areas where they know something, and areas where they just need a little bit of help. Once that is set out at the beginning, surely as a Rotarian who is a professional, you can tell when somebody can do something after you've taught them. You just check, monitor, and evaluate. When you get to a point where they can do it on their own, and you slowly pull out, you get to a point where you say, okay, hey, let them do it on their own. So in other words, like you're saying, it depends on project by project, number one. Number two, how knowledgeable the people you're dealing with are from the start. If they are very knowledgeable and all they want is the funding, 2 days you're out. But if they need funding, but they know nothing about farming, maybe you need 5 years. So it just depends on the fact that you've extracted from the community when you're doing your assessment.
Thank you.
Okay, our last question, please.
Can I just back that up? My name is Jan Kees Stichter from the Rotary Club of New Dawn in Johannesburg. Sawubona. Kunja. My remark is that Gabriel has said a lot of good things. We as Rotarians got to understand that we're actually translating a language that is foreign to people of the United States and of Europe, because everything is done differently there than in Africa. So you've got to understand the African mind. And the African mind in its own way, is very strong. So you mustn't dictate, but you must cooperate. And I think that is what I want to leave you with. If you can get that right, the cooperation between the minds of the African people and the people from Europe, United States, or wherever you come from, then you're going forward. I want to break a lance for that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much. Just before we close, this is from RI. They're looking for feedback. So please, if you have the app, please provide some comments. So first, I guess to close, first of all, thank you